Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. This is BioWeez podcast with the Weezard. I am Elizabeth and I am happy to receive today Tanja. Hi Tanja, thank you so much
Hi,
for being here.
thanks for having me.
So Tanja, you are the co-founder and CEO of the Female Factor.
Yes, exactly.
You became a businesswoman not only by following your mind but also by following your heart. Could you start by telling us a bit more about what led you to the Female Factor?
Wow, that's such a big question for me. I believe every step you take in your life is bringing you closer to where you are now, right? Every decision I made actually brought me where I am with the Female Factor today. And I think, yeah, to start super early and to wrap it up in short is I'm coming from an entrepreneurial family. So I always had the thing of you can do whatever you want. That was what my mom was teaching me very early on. And I think like this confidence that I got from her and from my family in general was pretty much like the foundation of where I am today, because I always like believed in myself and I never had any doubts that I can't do what I'm out for and what I want to. So this was one part, the upbringing that I had. And then there was like a very lucky thing that happened to me on a beach in Italy years ago when I finished school, when I read a book about entrepreneurship. And I was like, this is actually what I want. I also want to build things that are meaningful, that are different, that actually allow me to bring my abilities and my strengths into the game and make something beautiful out of it. So this was how the book described it. I was like, yeah, let me sign up for that. So this is why I studied entrepreneurship eventually, even though I didn't want to study. Then super luckily and random too, my first internship I got via a LinkedIn platform, and it was like 10 years ago, so it was super insignificant back then. And I was like, is this a scam that someone is texting me on a platform if I want to have a job? And I was studying entrepreneurship in my third semester there, and it was a guy from Berlin reaching out if I want to start join their team, like a super fast growing startup. And back then I didn't even know what a startup is. So I was like, is this legit? And I tried, and it was like a roller coaster of learnings. Within 6 months, it was crazy growth, and I learned so much in this like 6 months. So this was like one of the stepping stones I needed to take to understand what entrepreneurship means, what startup means, why I really love to be in the startup world. So all my back then students, and I think a lot of people can identify, if you're in one certain group of but if you're surrounded by one group of people that want to be consultants or, being in a corporate world, making their career, it's hard to be a bit different. So I was the only one being in the startup world, and everyone was like, there, you're not getting money, you can't really make a career there. And I was like, yeah, but people there, they are so hungry for something. They want to change the world. Like I saw their sparks in their eyes. And that was for me like, I want to be surrounded by these people. Like, what do I do in corporate where everyone is just sitting there, working their regular jobs and just waiting for the weekend to arrive? Like, this is something that like worst like imagination for me. Like, okay, I don't want to waste my time just for like making money, in a regular job. And so yeah, that was like the thing in my bug in my head that I knew, okay, I want something like that, a career like that. And then it took me a lot of other things, a lot of like internships and entry-level jobs in different startup environments, where I really learned a lot about how to do that. Then I started my own startup back in the days, which was a beauty booking platform. Didn't really succeed, but I'm also not claiming it as a failure because I learned a lot. But in the end, we gave that up too. And that brought me to leading a startup acceleration program in Europe, one of the biggest ones. And the accelerator is really targeted to help entrepreneurs with their idea and bringing that to a business. So over the years, I worked with like thousands of entrepreneurs on their pitches, on their business ideas, business models. I like generated a huge network of mentors and advisors and experts in like tons of different fields. And I was always like, okay, I love to support people. Like this is something that was so close to my heart, seeing like the game changers of tomorrow taking their first steps and helping them with like, you know, easy access to knowledge, to money in that case, to like just, you know, contributing to their success. That was something that I loved. I really, really loved. And the spirit of like entrepreneurs, it was just like really great. And then, you know, if you're in the startup scene, you notice at some point, not so many women. So what can you do? And yeah, me and my back then co-founder, we were sitting one day and saying like, okay, we need to do something. We need to do something. We can't complain about a status quo and then not going out and changing it. Like, then what? Like just complaining, that's not us. So I started an initiative which was called Female Founders, which was basically community platform to support female entrepreneurs and to actually advertise entrepreneurship as a career goal to women, because we felt, okay, we need to make it more hip, and you know, we need to contribute to the feeling of belonging for women too, because back then, and again that's like 5-6 years ago, and especially in the German speaking countries, also Berlin, like all the hotspots, if you went to a startup event as a woman, it's like you're one out of like 10 others, you know, and the rest is guys. So it can be a very intimidating atmosphere, and you never have the feeling that, you know, you are welcome there, because you just feel like an alien, you know. So we're like, yeah, we need to change that. So this was my first point when it comes to, okay, I want to help specifically female entrepreneurs, or those who want to be that, because I still strongly believe that we need more women in decision-making positions in as entrepreneurs, to really challenge the status quo for the better. Like women in general, we have like, I think, a bit more responsibility towards the future. It's not like only money and power driven. I'm not saying that guys are only like, you know, like hunting for that, but we naturally think ahead about legacy, about things we can improve for the next generation. And so obviously it's best to have also a lot of female entrepreneurs coming up with ideas that are tackling our problems, that are like, yeah, thinking just ahead of their time. And so yeah, that was like the thing that I had with female founders back then, and the organization I still led, which was the accelerator program. And at some point I was like, this is all cool, but you know, it just doesn't make sense to only work with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are great. I love startups. I love the atmosphere, the spirit. But in order to drive change on a global scale and for the future to come, I felt the need to combine forces. I thought, okay, we need to like connect entrepreneurs with decision makers of today, with corporate leaders, with like politicians, with media, like everyone, you know. And I figured, okay, how do you really connect and make deals and collaborate, is because you know the right people. So I always had, okay, we need to connect us between each other, and we need to connect women in these fields to each other, so they can actually make business, so they can help each other out, so they can help the next generation out, and all those things. And yeah, this was the idea of the Female Factor.
Yeah, and what an idea. So basically you experience yourself the whole empowerment by seeing it from the other side, which gave you the taste for entrepreneurship, and that's how it all started. And then,
Yes.
and that's what is really interesting, it's by observing the lack of women in the whole technology in the whole startups world. All of them, I could even, there is no point in pointing one of them as from the accelerator, you saw many kinds. So that's what gave you the desire to give this platform to women. So I guess the question would be, what do women need? What do women need to have this all empowerment thing going, to give them strength to be able to go further?
That's a great question. I believe we don't need anything, because we have it all already. It's just covered up with a lot of things we learned over the past, you know, hundreds of years in conditioning. A lot of like the upbringing, how women are raised, how guys are raised, what we believe in ourselves, the way we should, you know, behave when we are out, when we are at home, roles we need to take on. A lot of like, I think layers that we have on, we need to peel off to understand the strengths we actually have. And I mean, backed by research, you need like confidence, competencies and the right connection to make it in a career field. And that's basically something that's obviously everyone can achieve, you know. It's just about a lot of like self-beliefs and limiting beliefs you have from like, you know, society, your upbringing, your parents, your peer groups, and all those things. And obviously it takes a while to, you know, shed these layers. So this is where we said, okay, we can come in and actually contribute with those things when it comes to the confidence. So just bringing together the right people and opening the discussion and making people or women see, hey, you know, you can do this, and you know, we're all in this together. And everyone, literally everyone, doesn't matter where they are in their life, they are doubting themselves from time to time. This is a natural thing. We all have fears. You're not alone out there, you know. The only difference from those who made it already and you is that they took the steps. At some point, you know, the fear was not big enough anymore, and they overcame that. And this is something we want to help them. And then obviously having the right connections. And you know, like regular things, it's like still like, you know, we're in 2020, but if women are reading their job ad and they're not fulfilling 100% of the criteria, they are not applying to this job. And the guy, you know, I don't have the stat in mind, but it's like 60% or so, sometimes even 30. So, you know, guys are like, I'm growing with the challenge, I can do it. And all the self-doubt, this is something, you know, we actually aim to get past with the right network, with the right tools, and with the awareness, because the first step is always awareness.
And what are the right tools?
The right tools, I mean, for us in our, like, that's what we can contribute, but I mean, that would also be like, you know, upbringing in terms of the parents, how they educate you and how they raise you, and school systems, teachers, kindergarten, like all these like systems already, support system that kids need to grow and thrive. But where we came in, because this is our strength and everyone needs to do their own, you know, part towards change on that scales. For us, it's clearly just the support network in first place. So having the right peers that are thinking differently, that are liberating in a sense, because a lot of times you are like, you know, in this, cage of your family that thinks you should be that way, and your friends from like, you know, school that you're still hanging out with that are like happy where they are now, but they are not striving for more and things like that. So we are trying to break that up with connecting you with other people that are like, you know, free, and they think that there's more out there for you, you know. So this can help tremendously, a proper support network. And then obviously mentoring and sponsoring from people who are there and who went through the things already, and helping you and like, you know, seeing your potential. That's huge. I mean, also my mentor, like a couple of years ago, she pointed out strengths in myself that was like, that's a strength. I mean, that's a regular thing. Everyone is like that, right? And she's like, no. So sometimes you also need that as kind of a wake-up call. So yeah, that's something that we are very strong in terms of network, but also laying the other foundation in really skill building when it comes to your confidence. We're doing a lot of like confidence programs in coming on with different layers and areas when it comes to self-talk, you know, limiting beliefs. Like it's all these like very spiritual things that are trending more and more, and but people are way more aware now that this is really contributing to your whole, you know, life in a sense. It's not only business, it's contributing to more happiness actually. So this is something that we're really helping with. And then also obviously you need to still market yourself in a sense, especially when it comes to career now. So this is also something super important, like knowing how to pitch or introduce yourself, knowing what to put on your LinkedIn profile, how to do a proper headshot, what to put on a CV, how a CV should look like in different countries. Like all these competencies for the job market is something that we teach too.
So you are going way more further than just networking. And I think this is a trend that we can see also in you know, in 2020 with all the COVID and what it did to us and to our way to connect with each other, which is we are not only looking for networking events, but also for full communities that we can relate to, exchange, talk about our struggles, get empowerment. And this is true, you know, for a lot of communities. I would say that this is also what we do at BioWeez, as our goal is really to connect the dots in the life science ecosystem. So what would you say is the difference between networking and a community? How do you make that switch happen while building it?
Yeah, That's a beautiful question. I think the main thing is belonging. I feel networking is a lot of like, oh yeah, I know, it's cool to have a network and it's cool to notice people, but the community is always a sense of belonging, a certain goal, a certain upbringing, can be anything. For us, it's like a lot of like ambitious women trying to, make the world a bit better place in the future. So I think this is integral to actually achieve more. And personally, and it's also now I realize it with networking. I'm like, oh, it's so, it's such a such a bad reputation already, because it kind of feels sometimes it's very, um, one-sided. You just want to make deals. You don't really care a lot about the other person. You don't really care about helping others. And in the community, it's always about giving back and giving back and like growing together. And the typical networking thing is kind of a bit a different approach, I feel, even though it's quite similar. So this is something we, our mantra is like, and everyone that comes into the community needs to sign and pledge that we rise by lifting each other. It's just, I really want everyone to give before they're taking. And that's something that is super beautiful. And that's actually something that I learned from the startup scene. And I don't know, in a corporate environment, I'm always saying it's a bad thing, but obviously we have beautiful organizations out there that are a bit bigger and they're making it a nice place to work. It was just my personal experience with some corporates I was working for, but everyone was against each other. There was no collaboration. Everyone was so jealous of people like all the time. And no one was like really happy for any of the other's achievements and stuff like that. It was so bad for me to see that. It was such a toxic environment. And this is something in the startup scene. Everyone is so small in a sense. There is not a lot from the cake you can take away because the cake has not been baked yet. So people are more giving in the nature, and they take and give resources, as much as possible. And I think the startup scene is a beautiful way of showing that we all can collaborate for a better world. And this giving is a great mentality to live by.
Yeah, it's actually defining together the same goals that to bring people to look in the same direction. It makes sense. It's really beautiful, and I think we are starting to see a twist also in the corporate scene. At least a lot of effort are being put in trying to bring the people together and not to have them being one against the other. Do you see, regarding the female scene, do you observe any twist, any change of trends which are occurring for the last year, but even maybe wider than that?
One beautiful change I noticed, actually not in the last year, but before already. And this comes back to me as an entrepreneur when I was starting a couple of years ago. And there was like just the trend of like, startups are cool and, the new rockstar image, which is anyways a bit problematic too. But at least, something was changing and the people were actually aspiring to try things themselves, which I think is beautiful. And so back then I was the only, no, that's not true. In one of the pitching competitions, there were 2 women pitching, me and someone else, and the rest of like 15 teams or so were guys. And back then I remember my first pitch on a stage, I almost like puked because like, oh my God, I need to go out there and I don't know what I'm telling them, and I'm very bad in recalling information. I'm better in just like talking, but a pitch is something that you need to follow, so I was like, oh my God, I couldn't eat the whole day, this kind of behavior. So another thing why I really wanted to help others to get there, because I know the struggles myself. So that was just like, the 2 of us as women pitching. And then over the years, because I led the startup accelerator, so, I saw it with the programs, more and more women coming in. And one time there was like this woman pitching, super young, so confident on stage. And I was like, wow, like there were guys with her in the team, but she was pitching. And I loved the fact that, we had a 50-50 ratio when it comes to female teams then, or at least, having 1 woman in their teams. And it was like, wow, we're finally at that stage that like women are as confident as guys, like going on a stage and pitching without like, questioning if they can do it or not, and even taking over voluntarily this position. And I was like, oh, finally. And it was like 4 years into the accelerator until we got to this number. And that's fluctuating all the time, obviously, but I loved it. And I loved that, there was just daring to be there and pitch.
this is very nice to see that little by little, you know, it happens. I would have a tendency to think, yeah, it depends on the person, you know,
Of
like
course,
it doesn't matter if you're a woman or if you're a man. Everyone has its own struggle, especially when it comes to public speaking. So, but it's true that the fact that you are seeing the trend within the accelerator changing, it's very, I would say,
it's beautiful.
reassuring somehow. Yeah, very beautiful. It says that we're getting there.
Yeah, I
when
hope
it comes
so.
to self-confidence.
I mean, it's at least one indicator. I mean, you know, we need, in order to really change the startup world in that sense, we would need more women in tech that are studying, like, you know, anything with IT, or at least, you know, having the network in those things. And then again, that starts even earlier. Women are like kids, like girls need to be in touch with all those things earlier, and not having the separation between, you know, what guys find cool and what girls should find cool, and all those things. And also, obviously, it doesn't guarantee that anything changes by the end. So, for example, now, like speaking now for Austria, because I just read a report last week, was the biggest investment rounds. I mean, in Austria, they are never that big, but we have some. And there was like, you know, from 10 teams, 0 women. And I was like, you know, until actually we get there to raise a lot, I'm not saying that raising money for a startup is like the key indicator that is successful, right? It is also a wrong thing that is pictured in the media. Like raising money is really not the way to go. It's great if you can manage and if you still grow and make money at some point. But yeah, it was still like, okay, there are no women there. And also when you say like in general, like now global VC money went down again in 2020 after we having an up in 2019, like all those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is another thing that I wanted to discuss with you. I saw that this report, like in general, the corona had a very bad impact on investment on femtech. Like those are the numbers. Do you have some kind of explanation somehow about how?
Yeah. It's hard, right? I mean, you can put it on. Obviously, we know already during the pandemic, more women needed to take on their parenting jobs again, you know, like coming down on their workforce. So obviously, if you're about to start or raise, this is interfering with your plans. So maybe that's an indicator. I don't know. Like there are so many things. I think also this year taught us very well also what really counts in life. And it's honestly hardly making money. Because if you're just, you know, in your home for like 9 months of the 12, it just, you know, makes everything a bit, puts everything into perspective in terms of what counts. And that's more relationships, spending time with your loved ones, spending time with yourself. So I think also the current, like all this hamster wheeling we are usually in, you know, running for success and making more money or raising more or building more, was also maybe was a bit put on hold. Or slowed down in a sense, just because maybe that's not everything, because if the world is really going down next year, which could be given 2020, we don't know. Everyone is hoping for 2021, but you know, we're not sure what's coming.
We have no clue.
And then, you know,
we have no clue at this stage.
No clue.
What will be in 2021?
Something that we learned in 2020. Yeah, like nothing is certain. So that's also something. I mean, speaking here from me and for like people I'm talking to and women I'm talking to specifically, it's a lot about back to a stable income and job security in a sense, which is also false anyways, because no corporate was like, you know, getting out there without taking any hint. But yeah, it just shifts the perspective. And if something is really going wrong next year, then why would you now work your ass off, so to say, with like raising and building bigger things if you're not sure if you can even pay your mortgage next year?
Yeah,
you know, or there is even a house. Speaking like that.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. So it is not that women projects are less attractive suddenly, but yeah.
That would be my, I don't know, interpretation of things, but it can be obviously completely different, right?
Of course, but you're on the field, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and what would you say is, because you come with such a good energy when it comes to that switch that you made, especially, I think that it takes, you know, some kind of trigger to get there, to be able to be at the stage where you are not you are not afraid to be vulnerable and to expose yourself and to make your own path through success just by trying and going, as you were saying, step after step. I, I, I still think that something, there is some trigger somehow. It should be different for each and everyone, especially for women. I would be curious to know what it has been for you. You were mentioning a book earlier.
Yeah.
Something from there.
It's such a good, yeah, it's such a good, actually I can pin it down on a lot of, not a lot, but some points in my life that had such a shaping moment for me. And for some, I can say it was planting seeds. So yes, the book that I mentioned was definitely the starting point for me, where I said, this is what entrepreneurship could be about. You know, I never saw it that way. It was never an aspiring goal for me. But then like reading the description of why to build things and how to put your strengths into a practice was like this, okay, I want this. So that's what shaped the path in general. And then after I was selling my first startup, I was actually at the pitching competition in Budapest. And this was another very much, turning point for me, because I was helping actually the others to prepare for the pitch, because mine was fine already. I knew what I was doing. And I had such joy helping others. So I was like, why I'm even on that side pitching my startup, what I'm not even passionate about anymore. I should be on the other side helping them. So this was something that was nudging me into the direction, you know, changing. And then opportunities there open. So that's why I got this offer to overtake the Startup Accelerator. And some things along the line was also, when starting my own company, was one of my mentors and friends back then nudging me all the time. You know, you should do yourself. You should go and start a startup. And I was like, me? I'm not there yet, you know, just getting started with my career. And he's like, no, you definitely have what it takes. I'm like, nah. So it was a lot of like, you know, him planting the seeds, telling me all over that I can do it, until I believed it myself. And then I think it's just about doing it. And I think it's also one of the super important basics is understanding failure, and that failure is like up to your own interpretation. And failure is never that bad that, you know, society is picturing it. And even now, like this with the fuck up nights and everything coming up, I think failure is a bit more celebrated in the sense, but still a lot of us have like the, you know, fear in us of making the wrong decision, taking the wrong step, especially when it comes to investing into your own career and, you know, being your own boss. Mm-hmm. And this is something I think we all need to remember, like, almost no decision is irreversible. So you can always go back to your secure job, you know. It's like, it's never a thing that you give up everything. And there will always be, for most of us, some kind of a security net in essence. So there's never a lost opportunity there. And even if my startup did not, you know, succeed, or any other career choices I made that were bad, I always learned something. So I would never say, oh my God, this was such a bad idea to start a startup, because I learned so much, and I wouldn't be here where I am today if I wouldn't just jumped into this adventure and, you know, tried.
Yeah, completely.
And,
yeah, completely. Success is just the experience that you can take from every of your steps. And
exactly. Yeah,
that's very inspiring. Context of the female factor, do you have women of the ecosystem of life science? And what would you have to say to give an additional push to that?
I mean, I think that goes to every woman out there in any field that is underrepresented, and when it comes to other peers, female peers, right? Not only for life sciences, and I think it's ups and downs for a lot of industries. And actually, some of our teams back then at the accelerator were coming from the life science part, and I actually, like so many of the women I was working with, they were really, you know, eager to change the world, especially in life sciences, because there's such a huge potential to really contribute to something bigger. And for them, actually, the thing that really helped them during their career, or their building their business, was always like having a mentor, you know, someone that comes from the industry. And I really, that's true for like, I think all of us. If you have someone who understands the market, can give you some insights, can give you the right introductions, that's something that can really be beneficial. So that's my call to every woman out there who feels lonely in a field and maybe a bit lost, or doesn't dare to take the next steps because it's maybe still a male dominated area, or because, you know, you just haven't figured it out yet, which is totally fine. It's always good to have someone, even better if it's externally, not even from their own company, so it's really not biased, and then see where this takes you. And specifically like for them, for example, and if you're like thinking of like, you know, starting your own business at some point, it's great to have an investor, as a female investor, as a mentor that comes from that industry, because they really understand the whole cycle that it takes, right? So yeah, and I think that's the easiest quick fix you can have, to just have someone, an ally by your side that helps you to navigate through like all the things that life throws at you in that business context.